A very good morning to all my dear students. A very good morning Once to all. Once again, I welcome you all on behalf of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. A very warm welcome to each and everyone who is present here for attending CA Foundation Law classes. And also equally, I'm thankful to the Institute for giving me an opportunity to connect with all of you once again. So the feelings is exactly mutual. Those who have written, we missed you, ma'am. We are happy to see you back. The feelings are exactly the same. Even I am glad and happy to have you all back in my class. So thank you so much for Teachers' Day wishes also. Good morning, Varsha, MD Sarfaraz, Smith, Supardha. Great. I'm glad to read that. That's great. Miss Ruchi, good morning. Pranjali, Rishu, Vinayak. I'm glad to know that you're excited for the class. That's very nice. Miss Sachi, Yashika, Prem, good morning all of you. So many names, so it's difficult to take so many names. Pooja, Rishu, all of you. So very good morning to each one present over here. So children, as you all know, you have now completed Indian Contract Act, Sale of Goods, Partnership, LLP. So now we are in the last leg of CA Foundation Law subject, that is Companies Act. So how the session is divided, I'll be having 3 sessions with you, one today, another one on 9th, and then on 11th. The Companies Act is divided in 3 sessions. So what we are going to today, we will be doing an introduction, the basic characteristics of Companies Act, what is a company, why we need to set up a company. So till now you have been hearing about contractual obligations, sale, purchase, buyer, seller, partners were holding hand. So अब तक जितना पढ़ लिया है उसको थोड़ा सा साइड पे रखकर अब हम एक नया कॉन्सेप्ट समझेंगे, which is a very different and a new concept which is known as company. So after that we'll try to cover corporate veil theory also today, and half of types of companies we'll do today along with the examination questions, because last time I was saying when I ask you at the end, then it gets too much information dragged together, and at the end we do the revision. So how I have planned it this time, we will be revising the questions which we do today from our presentation. Same questions, corporate veil theory and private company, government company, we'll do from the examination paper also, so that you understand how you have to write it in the exam. The second session we'll be covering incorporation, and the third will be MOAs and AOs. Don't worry, I know you don't know what is MOAs and AOs. So I'm just telling you the division of the session so far. A very good morning, those who have just joined now. Good morning, all of you. Great. Good, Sahil, Prerna, Ria, Nathani, Ankit, all of you. A very warm welcome. So children, we are going to talk about a very interesting concept today, a company. First of all, before beginning the session, let me just tell you a very interesting story. For example, I am Miss Harleen Kaur, who is a sole proprietor. And I thought, being a chartered accountant, I have been into teaching also, I have been into practice also. Why don't I set up some kind of business? So, but while I went to set up a business in the market, I thought that I will be setting up a shoe business. But when I went to the market to set up my shoe business, I just wondered that all my dear students have also told me that, ma'am, we are already, having a good name and brand value for Skechers, Adidas, Nike. So मुझे बड़ा सोचना पड़ा कि अगर मुझे as a sole proprietor, as an individual business setup करना है, so मुझे market grab करनी पड़ेगी. All these people who are running after Adidas, Nike, I have to compete with them. So this is what we have been learning since childhood. Higher the investment, higher the risk, higher the profits. So being a sole proprietor, if I really want to do business, I will be investing huge money. Why huge money? Because if I just invest a little bit money, I will be expecting little bit targets. But if I want to really compete with the good brands and I want to have a market for my share of business, I really need huge investment. So I decided to set up my own market and my own shoe business. So huge investments were there, higher the risk and higher the profits. But one problem that I was facing was, being an individual, being a sole proprietor, I was having huge unlimited liabilities. मेरा बिजनेस है ना, मुझे ही लाइबिलिटीज भुगतनी पड़ेंगी, आप तो नहीं आके मेरी लाइबिलिटीज पे करोगे. सो मैंने सोचा क्यों ना थोड़ा सा बर्डन डिवाइड कर लिया जाए. So I called up Prerna and Prakash. I said, Prerna and Prakash, let's join a partnership among us. And Prerna and Prakash joined hands with me and we signed a partnership deed and we decided to expand the burden. And what is the benefit that I got? My capital sharing contribution got shared. Everyone was now bringing an investment. We were having a sharing of burden. Okay, now investments were burdensome for me in a sole proprietorship. Now I've shared my burden. Capital contributions are also coming from outside. But again, we were having a relationship of agency. Whatever Prerna would do, Prakash and me were liable. Whatever I will do, Prerna and Prakash will be liable. So this is what we understood in a concept of partnership agreement. And also there was a drawback of unlimited liability. Partners है, काम करेंगे तो business के लिए liable भी होना पड़ेगा. What was the meaning of unlimited liability? That if liability of my partnership firm cannot be fulfilled by the business, we might have to bring up personal assets also from home. उनको बेचेंगे, sale करेंगे और फिर outsiders की liabilities को pay off करेंगे. Fair enough, this is what we have started in partnership and this is what you all have written and we have revised also. That's good. I'm glad, Miss Ranjana, Yash, all of you, good, you have revised the concept. Om Sirvi, Shrashti, Jyoti, good, that's nice. All right, Honey More also. So now what happened, I was still having the urge to expand the business. Partnership to ho gayi, and unlimited liability was still bothering me a lot. So what my children have just learned few days back, that ma'am, we have a concept of LLP also, limited liability partnership. So उसी flexibility of partnership में हमने enjoyment of limited liability लेने के लिए LLP form कर ली. So now let me take some other names. Miss Nivedita and Om Sirvi. Om Sirvi and Nivedita formed LLP with me. So we were very happy. We got a corporate existence also because we got a self-registered and we have the benefit of LLP. But my hunger and expansion of business was still there. So I still wanted to expand my business. So I got up an idea, why don't we set up a company? Are you understanding what I'm trying to tell you? Different forms of organization. If you are a sole proprietor, you will be investing huge money, but the burden of liability will be directly on your shoulders alone. So we joined hands, we converted our contributions, we got sharing of profits, but liabilities were unlimited. So partnership firm, another advantage we got from limited liability partnership by limiting our liability. But if you want to do a business at a larger scale, you may either set up a private limited company or you can even ask the public to subscribe shares in my company. I will be allotting them shares. Now I will have public interest in my company. I can set up a huge public company as well. So this is how the incorporation, the word company came into existence. In order to have an expansion of business, in order to have the public at large investing money with your form of organization, and also you have limited liability share. Why limited liability? Because majorly in companies, you are liable only up till the amount of your shareholding. But in today's presentation, I will teach you how the companies are limited by shares, by guarantee, and unlimited company. So chaliye, let's start. Let me show you a presentation where I'm going to teach you today what is exactly a company. Company hoti kya hai? Kaise banti hai? How we look into a company, whether it is an individual person, it's an artificial person. Let us understand what is a company. So first of all, the name of the act in itself is Companies Act 2013. All right. So now please, all of you come back here. Rushita, Sanket. Good. That's nice. You have a concept of limited liability company, also unlimited company. That's good, Kanishka. That means you have a good knowledge about Companies Act. So now I'll still try to explain you each and every word from scratch, assuming even if you are a business studies student, you must have studied this much. Companies Act reference would have been given in your books in class 11th. But I'm assuming you all are blank. आपको कुछ नहीं आता है. मैं आपको बेस से बताऊंगी ताकि अगर आप भूल भी गए हो, then also you can have a good revision. And those who are not from a commerce background, it will be a lottery for them to hear this lecture. They will anyways understand from the scratch what is company. So first of all, the name of the act is very important, children. Now, why I have uploaded this slide specifically to highlight the name Companies Act 2013. The very important fact you all should know that earlier we were following Companies Act 1956. So in 2013, major amendments took place and the name of the act was altogether changed and it was made Companies Act 2013. Now, what is the meaning of act you have been studying? Sale of Goods Act, Partnership Act. Can you see the picture of law in front of you? Judge के सामने होता है ना, movies में देखते हो, order, order. This kind of hammer is there in his hand. This kind of tarazu, which you see in movies. So this is the kind of a picture depicting a court scene. So Companies Act means whatever rules, regulations are applicable to a company, whatever the cases, whatever the litigations will be related to a company in a court, handling of those cases, litigations and rules and regulations will be regulated under Companies Act 2013. 1956 is the Major Companies Act, which has the Bear Act. Entire act is defined over there. But if you refer to any other books, study material is highly updated with all the amendments, with all the rules. But children, if you ever try to get in touch with your Google material or outside the study material, please make sure you're following Companies Act 2013 and not the old act. We always have to make sure that all the amendments which are updated in the study material, we should be following them thoroughly, because that can be one major concern of asking a question whether you're an updated person in CA or not. So amendments, rules, regulations, everything is highlighted in bold in study material. If you'll see Common Seal, 2015 amendment is already there. So I'll make you read each and every paragraph from the study material also. But in this slide, please remember, we have to follow Companies Act 2013, not 56. So this is the session layout. This is how your 3 sections will be held out. First of all, we'll be having features of a company. Now, features of company is something very, very simple for you. You know why it is simple? Because you have already grabbed and learned the feature of LLP. So in LLP, already you have understood what is the meaning of corporate existence, because a partnership was having a compliance of a company and we were given a corporate existence. Similarly, अब जब हम companies करेंगे तो हम partnership को भूल जाएंगे और LLP को भी भूल जाएंगे. हम सिर्फ companies पे ध्यान दें. तभी मैंने आपको वो शुरू में स्टोरी सुनाई है कि sole proprietor होता है, फिर partnership आती है, फिर आपकी LLP आती है, फिर आप private company सेटअप कर सकते हो या public company. It can still go beyond. If you are investing in some other company, you can have holding subsidiary relationship. If you're having a 20% share in another company, you can be associates with each other. If government is taking a stake in your company, there can be a government company also. So the story will go on in case of companies. But now we will be totally engrossed in companies, and don't keep, featuring yourself into another sections and acts. One of the students, I remember in the previous session when I ended the lecture, somebody was asking, ma'am, please हमें जरूर बता देना कि हमने पढ़ना कैसे. So as I always tell you, when you sit for studying partnership, be completely engrossed in partnership. See children, law again, it's a memory game. I keep telling you, it is theory. अगर आप मुझे बोलेंगे मैम लर्न करना है, हाँ जी लर्न करना पड़ेगा. लर्न समझ के लर्न करना है, but लर्न करना पड़ेगा. Keep on telling those people who call chartered accountants are, ratta fires and all these things. It's okay. First of all, remember to give deaf ears to the negative energies. It's very important. Many times I have noticed students feel so demotivated. One of your just friends come up and they tell you, यार difficult है, तेरे से नहीं होगा. Please मेरी एक बात याद रखना, अगर आपको कोई ये चीज कहता है ना, उसको तो यहाँ से पकड़ो और यहाँ से बाहर निकालो. Negative energies should not be part of your studies whenever you sit for studying chartered accountancy course. There will be people who will try to dominate you, who will try to stop you. But what we have to remember and remind ourselves again and again, I will do it. I can do it. What if I have to study for long hours? What if I have to learn law? I will learn it. Who is stopping you? You have the whole time of universe. बाहर तो वैसे ही कोविड है, जाना अलाउड नहीं है. So घूमना फिरना तो वैसे ही बंद है. There is no need of putting a restriction. It is already a restriction has been imposed by government on you. So please utilize your time properly. You know, why do we face a problem that we tell a teacher that, ma'am, mere se syllabus nahi ho raha? Because you are not a good planner. You're not planning your studies. So if you ask me how to plan your studies, please plan your studies acts-wise. If you have decided 4 days I'm going to give to Indian Contract Act, be in the Indian Contract Act only. Study it thoroughly and then jump to the mock test papers, suggested papers, revise your content from that. Done. Next 2 to 3 days, you have decided to give sale of goods, be with sale of goods. Don't peep into partnership in between. After that, study partnership, study LLP, and at the end, 3 days minimum you should give to companies. So it's entirely the same structure the way you have been handling the online classes also. But the only problem is you need to plan it. See, one person might find it 4 days for Indian contract, another child might need 5 days. So it depends, it varies from person to person. You have to see how much you have earlier revised. If you have not revised, then at least minimum 4 to 5 days have to be given to a particular app. But trust me, if you still not started, if you're still wondering, exams will come, then I'll start, then I'm sorry. Things will not be that beautiful the way you have glorified them. If you really want to be stress-free, you want to be happy with your studies, please start planning them from today. All right, बहुत हो गया ज्ञान, वापस आ जाते हैं कंपनीज एक्ट में. हम पार्टनरशिप पढ़ेंगे तो पार्टनरशिप सोचेंगे, कहने का मतलब ये था, अब कंपनीज पढ़ेंगे तो सिर्फ हम कंपनीज पे ध्यान देंगे. So we will be doing features of Companies Act. Corporate bail theory will also be explained to you at stretch. Now children, corporate bail theory is a topic from which examiner really enjoys asking you a question. Many a times you find a straightforward question coming from the examiner, what is corporate bail theory? Or many a times he will be throwing light on these specific case laws. Why do you need to lift the corporate bail? अब जैसे कि फॉर एग्जाम्पल मैं आज आपको कराऊंगी डिमलर कंपनी लिमिटेड वर्सेस कॉन्टिनेंटल टायर एंड रबर कंपनी. मैम हमें केस लॉस के नाम याद करने हैं. इट इज एग्जैक्टली अप टू यू. इफ यू कैन रिमेंबर द नेम ऑफ केस लॉ, प्लीज लर्न इट. बट इफ यू हैव टू रिमेंबर द कंटेंट्स, yes, because examiner is going to give you the facts of a respective case and the application of this particular case law will be your answer. So Companies Act easy दिखता है, but थोड़ा सा practical applications and knowledge ज़्यादा होती है इसमें, which you have to understand. So don't worry, each and every case law will be explained to you at length in the class today. All I demand from you is 100% concentration with your pens and papers and eyes on the screen continuously. Apart from the break time. So I give you break also in between 5 minutes, okay? And classes of companies. After that, we have share capital and shares. Classes of companies, I've already told you. Private company, public company, government company. Again, examiner enjoys asking you if government is investing more than 51% share in ABC Limited. Will ABC Limited considered as a government company? Yes or no? So इस तरह के practical questions आपको companies में पूछे जाते हैं. So this is one of the questions of January 2021, which we will take up after the class today. After that, what is share capital? You must be having a fair knowledge about equity share capital, preference share capital. Even if you have not done business studies, companies, even now in accounts, you must be studying about the company's accounts. So it is very much related to that. And then memorandum and articles of association will be taken up largely in the third session. Just to give you a glimpse, just to give you a fair idea about what is memorandum. Memorandum is also known as the charter of the company. The main document जिसमें आपकी कंपनी का नेम, बिजनेस, ऑब्जेक्टिव, कंपनी करती क्या है, what the company is exactly into. Okay, so that is very important to understand. Anyone who wants to do a business with a company is bound to read these memorandum and articles. These are public documents. Say, for example, if I want to invest in ABC Limited, I will first go and pick up their memorandum and articles and read it. I will try to figure out what the company is into. Then I will take a decision. Do I have to invest into this company or not? Say, for example, when I started the shoe business, when I started the lecture with you, I told you as a sole proprietor, I was going into shoe business. And now I have decided into partnership and then I opened up my company. So now my company is into still the same business, shoe business. So in my memorandum of association, it will be clearly written down that this company deals in the business of shoemaking. So if you want to invest in my company thinking that I am into something else, maybe I'm a cloth merchant, then it is your mistake. You should have read my memorandum before investing or making contributions in my company. Okay, तो इसको हम largely समझेंगे जब हम memorandum वाले chapter में जाएंगे. अभी के लिए सिर्फ this much you have to remember that memorandum is a document which tells us about all the details, name, business, and objective of the company. And there is another important document which is known as Articles of Association. This document tells us about the internal rules and regulations of a company. Okay, it will tell us how the directors are to be appointed, for the shareholders, how they behave, how the meetings are going to head. All these kind of things are written in the Articles of Association. So this is your entire Companies Act 2013, which is part of your CA Foundation. So children, in CA Foundation, you have a very basic information which is given to you for Companies Act. तो बड़े repetitive questions आते हैं. अगर आप मुझे पूछोगे ना तो मुझे बल्कि कंपनीज एक्ट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट से भी ज्यादा सिंपल लगता है, ऑल्दो थोड़ा टेक्निकल है, बट just small 3 sessions, 3 chapters, you just have to revise and learn them. So another tip, if you really want to do your studies well, around 13 marks question generally come from Companies Act. It can be 12, it can be 13, it can be 14. So round figure of 13 mark questions generally come from Companies Act. So if you have learned these 3 sessions very nicely, so 13 marks are anyways there in your pocket. So practical application is one thing which is very important to understand. And in foundation, we just try to lay, as the name itself says, foundation, एक base बना रहे हैं. तो बड़ी basic information Companies Act के आपके साथ share करी जाएगी. Not into too much length we will go. But the interesting part is 5-6 case laws which are very, very important will be covered in CA Foundation Companies Act. So today also around 4 to 5 case laws I'm going to talk about today. So there will be interesting stories coming up. So enjoy those stories and try to learn it then and there in the classroom. So I think this slide I've already told you, Companies Act was preceded by Companies Act 1956. अब इस line का मतलब क्या है? He says that this is the act which now we have to follow and learn. Companies Act 2013 was preceded. Preceded means it was taken over from the Companies Act 1956. Due to the changes in national and international economic environment and facilitate the expansion and growth of our economy. I told you, why are we setting up a company? I can only be restricted as a sole proprietor. I want to expand my business, whether nationally or even internationally. I can set up companies outside also. I can have foreign companies also. So in order to have better expansion and growth, central government decided to replace the act which was having provisions of Companies Act 1956. Now it has broadened it up and it has made certain amendments and consolidated the laws relating to the company. What this act specifically tells us, this act specifically talks about all the laws relating to the companies. हिंदी में मतलब कंपनी कैसे बनेगी, कैसे चलेगी, कैसे रिलेशनशिप्स रखेगी, सारी legal formalities, all the legal formalities, obligations related to companies is defined under Companies Act 2013. Now this is a mere information, not important to learn. It says that Companies Act contains 470 sections. If you can learn the sections, it's okay. सारे तो इसमें है भी नहीं है. You cover 470 sections when you go into CA Inter. Here you only covered 5 to 6 sections. It has 7 schedules and 29 chapters. So this is the division and distribution of the Act. This is how the Act has been defined. And the important line is a substantial part of the Act is in the form of company rules. So it not only just has Act, but certain times amendments keep coming and keep getting engrossed in your study material also, which is given under company rules. So what you have to remember in company rules? Only the information which is covered in your study material, that's it. Nobody is asking you to read the bare act and go into companies rule. This is just the division of the act which you should have a general awareness. So first 2 slides are just to give you an introduction about what the company is. What is the basically Companies Act, how it is applicable. So the applicability of Companies Act, you have understood that Companies Act is applicable to the companies. So number 1, to all the companies which are incorporated under this act or under any previous company law. Now today you made the ABC Limited under Companies Act 2013 or you made ABC Limited under 1956, Companies Act will be applicable to both the companies. What is the meaning of incorporated? Means you have obtained the certificate of incorporation. Remember, under partnership, registration was not compulsory. Section 69, याद है ना? अगर आप registration नहीं कराते हो तो कुछ benefits है जो partnership में आपको नहीं मिलते. But is it an option under Companies Act? The answer is no. It is compulsory for you to get your company registered. You have to obtain a certificate of incorporation from the registrar of companies. So number one, it says it is applicable to all the companies which have obtained the certificate of incorporation, whether in 2013's Act or under 1956, both it will be applicable. Second, it says Companies Act is also applicable to the insurance companies. So all the insurance companies which are doing their business, Companies Act 2013 is also applicable to them. Insurance Act. Now this is something to understand. It says insurance companies also, Companies Act is applicable. But first you will apply the respective act. So insurance companies are incorporated under Insurance Act. So first Insurance Act provisions will be applicable, and where Companies Act is not having consistency, means there is a disagreement. Companies Act is saying something else, Insurance Act is saying something else, then Insurance Act will be applicable. So in general, insurance companies will follow Insurance Act, but where Companies Act needs to be applied, that will also be applied. But first provisions have to be applied of the Insurance Act. Similarly, it says Companies Act is also applicable to the banking companies. So whatever provisions are given under Companies Act, they apply to banking companies, except where the banking regulations only need to be applied. So if there is any irregularity between Companies Act and banking regulation, then banking regulation will be applicable for banking companies. But can banking regulation apply to insurance company? No. Insurance companies will be following Insurance Act, but Companies Act is also applicable to them. Banking companies will follow Banking Regulation Act, but Companies Act is also applicable. So generally they follow the Banking Regulation Act where the provisions are inconsistent. Otherwise, Companies Act is also applicable. Means all the memorandum, articles of association, kaise banana hai, ye sari applicability Companies Act की provisions होंगी. Similarly, the companies which are engaged in the generation and supply of electricity. So all the electricity companies will also have the applicability of Companies Act, again, except where the provisions are inconsistent with the provisions of Electricity Act. So all these companies have their respective act. These are known as statutory companies which are formed by a special act. So they have a special act. Insurance companies are governed by Insurance Act, banking companies, Banking Regulation, electricity companies, Electricity Act. But Companies Act is also applicable to them. But what is the meaning of except where the provisions are inconsistent? Means जहाँ पे इनका झगड़ा हो जाए. The Companies Act कुछ कह रहा है, Insurance Act कुछ कह रहा है, then what will you apply? Answer me. What will you apply if Companies Act says something else and Insurance Act is saying something else? Then what will you apply to the insurance company? Which act will be applicable then? Excellent. Then Insurance Act will be applicable. Very good. So that means you're paying attention. So this is a general briefing of how a company, why a company is required, and how the applicability of Companies Act 2013 has been defined. Now let's start with a very important topic. What is a company? So children, these first and third slides are entirely a replicate of your study material, because generally when you open the books, na, you find a confusion कि ये वाला paragraph पढ़ना है कि नहीं पढ़ना है. So a fair reading to this much, what I've explained is sufficiently enough. It's not very important from the examination point of view, but at least when you're starting the Companies Act, we should have the basic information and knowledge about what the Act actually talks about. Good, Abhishek, Ruchi, and Sarfaraz and Lakshna, those who have written the correct answer. Very good. So now jump into what is a company, which is very more important question. Examiner can straight away ask you this question, that what is a company, and describe the features and characteristics of company. So here I have three definitions taken from the study material for you. What is the meaning of a company? The first one, according to Chief Justice Marshall. Chief Justice Marshall is the person who has given a definition. He says, a corporation is an artificial being, invisible, intangible, existing only in the contemplation of law. So when I was a student of your age and I opened Companies Act, I read this definition and I closed my book because it just went above from my head. So I assume at times you also have this kind of feeling. So I'll try to make you that simple that next time you open your book, you start feeling it enjoyable. So let's try to make it a little interesting and enjoyable. Have you studied in science living and non-living things? याद है बचपन में हमने पढ़ा था. We all are human beings. We are living things. And this water bottle in my hand, can you see? Is it a living thing or non-living? Non-living, right? So non-living, living, natural living things, artificial living things. Remember the plants? Plants are also living things. So हम बचपन में ये चीजें सीखते थे, living things, non-living things. Similarly, Chief Justice Marshall applied his brain. He said, is the corporation a living thing? We always say that a company has its own identity, but children, is it a human agency? Can it breathe? Is a company given birth by a person? The answer is no. It is an artificial being. Artificial being means एक बनावटी चीज है जिसको humans create करते हैं, जो कि invisible है, दिखाई नहीं दे रही है, intangible है, you cannot touch it, but still it exists. It has its own corporate personality. In the contemplation of law means in the eyes of law. I am not existing as a person, but I exist in the eyes of law. Has it become easy for you now? So let's go word by word once again. A corporation means a company. Company को बोल रहा है corporation. So company is short form, CO we use. So it says a company is an artificial being, means एक artificial person है, which is invisible, दिखाई नहीं देती, intangible, you cannot touch it, but it exists only in the eyes of law. So the first picture that I showed you, the courts, order, books are lying over there. That balance was shown to you there, and the company law books. So it exists in the books. Company has its separate existence. It is given a name. You can fight on the name of a company. A case you can fight in the name of a company. So company has a separate existence in the eyes of law. Let's go to a little simpler definition. Another one. It says, according to Professor Henry, a company is an incorporated association. So number one, क्या बात बोल दी? Incorporated. Yes, ma'am, you just now told us that company needs an incorporation certificate. So yes, we have to get it incorporated. What is the meaning of incorporated? If I am ABC Limited, I have decided to set up a company in Delhi. I need to go to the registrar of companies in Delhi. I need to apply. I have to get my company registered. So then from that particular state or city, I will get the registration certificate, incorporation certificate. Now my company is incorporated. So what happens on incorporation? Number two, it becomes an artificial person. I just now told you artificial person, non-living, somebody who is not living person. We are living things, plants, animals are living things, non-living, books, table, furniture, these are non-living. Similarly, company is also an artificial person created by law. Law ने बनाया है, आपने नहीं बनाया. जब ठप्पा लग गया ना, सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ इनकॉर्पोरेशन लग गया, तो कंपनी इनकॉर्पोरेट हो गई. एक आर्टिफिशियल पर्सन इन द आईज ऑफ लॉ comes into existence. Point number 3, having a separate identity. Now, let me just take few names. A, B, and C are the members who went to the registrar and they said that we want to make a company ABC Limited. Now, what did we understand in partnership? ABC were partners and they were forming ABC Associates. Children, was there any difference between the partners and the partnership firm? I told you now, what is the firm? All the partners are collectively known as partnership firm. Am I right? But will ABC together known as ABC Limited? The answer is no. A, B, C are the members of a company and ABC Limited is the company they have formed. This company is different from its members. This is the meaning of separate entity. In partnership, in LLP, we all were together. LLP again got a corporate existence. So in partnership, whatever the partners used to do, whole of the firm was liable. But in company, do you think whatever the shareholders will do, company will be liable? The answer is no. Why? Because company has a separate legal entity. Members alag hai, company alag hai. Separate means they are different. They are apart from each other. What is the fourth point? With a perpetual succession. Perpetual means continuous. Succession means existence. Please keep on writing down. Perpetual means continuous. Succession means existence. That means a company has a continuous existence. A company never dies. Even if all the shareholders who are running a company, if all of them also die, a company still continues to exist. Is the case with the partnership also? No. I told you if all the partners have retired, partnership firm will come to an end. You will have to make a new partnership with the new partners. But this is not a case with company. Company continues to exist. Company kabhi marti nahi hai. Hindi mein agar aap iska meaning पूछे, perpetual succession means company never dies. Even if all the shareholders or directors of a company die, company continues to exist. Company फिर भी चलती रहेगी. How a company comes to an end? Only when you get its name striked off from the registrar of companies. You have to apply for the liquidation of a company. You have to get the company wound up. Unless and until you don't get the binding up of the company, it still continues to exist in the books. So this is the meaning of perpetual succession. And the fifth point is a company has a common seal. What is the meaning of common seal? If I am a sole proprietor, I will sign the papers. If we are 3-4 partners, partners will be signing. But now we have so many shareholders. We have got a company incorporated. So now we will be using the seal, a thappa of the name of the company. So these are just the authorized signatures. When you're signing on behalf of a company, you will use this common seal. Now it says this definition actually sums up the meaning as well as the features of a company succinctly. What does it mean? Clearly. Succinctly means clearly. So this definition, which is given by Professor Hanne, it actually sums up, means it gives you the meaning also, and it gives you all the features of the company succinctly. Succinctly means clearly. It has defined it everything. This is actually what are the features of a company. Company has a separate legal existence. It's a body incorporated. It has common seal. It has perpetual succession. It is an artificial judicial person. These are the features of a company. So if you ask me, ma'am, which definition we should learn, I think this is the ideal definition because it sums up the meaning also and it helps you to remember the features of a company also. Succinctly means clearly. This word which is written in the study also, succinctly, it means clearly. So it clearly sums up all the meaning as well as the features of a company. So now it says, but the act has bit different definition. Now, अब जब act की बात कर रहे हैं, जब companies act में चले जाएंगे, तो obviously a section has to be there. So section 2 subsection 20 says company means any company which is incorporated under this act or under any previous company law. Now, if you tell me, ma'am, ABC Limited is a company which was incorporated under Companies Act 1956. So, ma'am, will it be called company under Companies Act 2013? So, I will say yes, because section 2 subsection 20 says any company which is formed under Companies Act 2013 as well as one which was formed in 1956, all the companies which are incorporated, they are registered, is known as company under Companies Act 2013. So the definition which is given under the Act, it is telling you what is a company. But what actually is a company has been very beautifully defined by Chief Justice Marshall and by Professor Hen. So this is the entire definition around which we are going to discuss the features of a company. I hope definition is very well clear to all of you. Now let's move to the silent features. So these are the characteristics. These are the same things जो मैंने अभी आपको बातों में definition में बताया, ये उसी का ही replication है. So it says it's a body corporate. Can you see such huge buildings of Tata which I have shown you over here? वो कह रहे company exist कर रही है. Now is it a human agency which can walk on its own? It says it's only a body corporate. Company's first feature is it's a corporate. It has a corporate existence. It always acts through human agency. You and me, the shareholders, we have made a company. So company has a separate existence. This is my building. This is the company which exists. But how is it acting? It is acting through human agency, either through its shareholders or through directors. Company is an artificial person. It cannot move on its own. It always tries to act through its human agencies. So number one is it's a body corporate, perpetual succession. I just explained to you. Company continues to exist. Say, for example, there are 5 shareholders who were going for a meeting and there were only 5 shareholders. One of them was a director of a company. Okay, minimum 2 directors we need to have. 2 of them were directors. All of the members and directors died in an accident. Will you say that the company comes to an end? The answer is no. Even if all the shareholders of a company have died, the company still continues to exist. This is the meaning of perpetual succession. Separate legal entity. I showed you right now this hand of mine. This is a company, ABC shareholders, they are different. So company is a separate legal entity. Makora versus Northern Assurance Company Limited. Entire case law, I will explain you when I open the study material. In this particular case law, they have also tried to tell you that you can't, as a shareholder, you can't even have an insurable interest in the property of a company. Separate legal entity means company's property is separate, shareholders' property is separate. If company does anything, company is held liable for it. If shareholders does anything, shareholders are liable for it. Different, separate. In partnership, we didn't have that. You remember the true test of partnership? You must be wondering, ma'am asked us to keep partnership out of her mind, but here I have to keep revising with you also, na? So I have to remind you. But otherwise, companies mein hum companies karenge, but it is very important to understand the difference between them. So in partnership, we had a mutual agency. Partners used to do something, the other partners used to be liable. We were interdependent on each other. But in companies, this is not the case. You cannot hold the shareholders liable for the actions of a company. This is what we broadly means the corporate veil theory. So children, corporate veil theory is based on this third feature of company, which is separate legal entity. You can simply remember this picture as of now. They are separate, shareholders are separate, company is separate. Company ke assets company ke hote hain, shareholders ke assets shareholders ke hote hain. Say if a company has a liability of 1 lakh and it could not be met from the company's fund, so ABC cannot be asked to bring their furniture from their home and sell off. Can you ask the shareholders to bring your personal property also because we have to pay the creditors? The answer is no. You will try to pay it out from the company's funds because these are company's liabilities. So company's property is also different. In partnership, we all were having a joint property. Remember when I told you A has bought the furniture from the home for the business? So B and C cannot say that we will not take care of this particular table which has been bought by A. We all partners, we have a trust and confidence, mutual faith on each other. So we have to take care of each other's things. This is not the case with company. Property of the company is company's property. So in Makora case, I'll explain you how the timber which was in the name of the individual, so company cannot claim the benefit of that. If something is in the name of an individual, that you cannot have an insurable interest in the name of company. If you want to take the insurance claim from the insurance company, you have to have the products in the name of the company. Okay, don't worry, we'll read this case law from the study material and we will talk about this. As of now, simply remember the concept of separate legal entity. And after that, artificial legal person, it's existing in the books. I've shown you clearly legal person. What do you mean by legal person? Means it's existing in books. It can own property. Company के नाम पे आप property खरीद सकते हो. ABC Limited के नाम पे property ली हमने. Company can sue and be sued. Company के against खिलाफ केस हो सकता है. Company केस लड़ सकती है. Company के नाम पे. ABC Construction Limited. So ABC Construction Limited is filing a case. So company के नाम पे case लड़ा जा सकता है. That means artificial legal person. It has been given the legality. It has been created by law. Company can also enter into contracts. But the interesting fact is company will not get up on its own and start moving. It always acts through human agency. So you cannot say that a company, have you ever seen a company moving out in the roads and it's going to enter a contract? So it's always acting through human agency, like shareholders, like directors. So you always need some people who act through the companies, but it's a company. SP Construction Company is filing a case with Mr. So-and-so. So company can enter into contracts also. Company can have a property in its own name also. This is the meaning of artificial legal person. After that, it talks about a common seal. I've already told you it. This is the authorized signatures. Again, 2015 amendment. We will read from the study material. What does it say? I will show you over there. Nowadays, it has become optional to have a company seal. It's not compulsory. Earlier, it was compulsory feature to have a common seal. But now, under 2015 amendment rules, they say that it is optional to have a company seal. If you don't have it, then at least minimum 2 directors should be signing it, or 1 director and 1 company secretary. I'll show you the exact information where it is written when we jump into the study material. And this is the smiling faces having the biggest advantage of setting up of a company. कि हमने business भी बड़ा कर दिया, हमने public at large interest भी ले लिया, and they are feeling so glad that our liability is limited. They are so happy and delighted. As a sole proprietor, I was having unlimited liability. Even when I asked the partners to join it, still I was having that feature of unlimited liability. But now we have expanded our business at large. We have overcome LLP also. We have, instead of private company, we have opened public company. Public is investing in our company now. We have huge shareholding, but our liability is limited. So largely, those who are asking, ma'am, it's always limited. No, I will teach you where the company is limited by shares, where the company is limited by guarantee, and there are unlimited companies also. But children, broadly, when you talk about a company, it is general feature of a company that our liability in a company is always limited up to the amount of shareholding. अगर आपने 10,000 शेयर कंपनी में लिए तो आपकी 10,000 तक की लायबिलिटी होगी. Again, for a company limited by shares, you're liable only till the amount which is unpaid on the shares. So again, we will understand on types of companies, but as a feature, please remember you have limited liability up till the shareholding that you have done in a company. Clear? So these are the 6 features which are again very beautifully defined in a definition by Professor Henne. So learn this definition of what is company and these 6 features. Macora versus Northern Assurance. I will just take it from the study material, but let me just give you a small briefing about corporate bail theory also. So children, corporate bail theory is a very, very important concept. If you are having study material in front of you, please mark it. Very, very important. Whether you get a question from this chapter or not, but as a CA student, I believe if you are doing Companies Act, you should know what is corporate bail theory. A very leading legendary case of Salomon versus Salomon and Company Limited. This whole story I will explain you today, but let us first understand what is corporate bail theory. It says a company has its own existence and a shareholder cannot be held liable for the acts of the company. Now, why I have written this simple line over here, examiner can straight away give you this question. Please explain, what do you mean by a company has its own existence and a shareholder cannot be held liable? Can the veil of corporate personality be lifted? As it is, आपको exam में question पूछा जा सकता है. So what will be your answer for that? Yes, the company has its own existence. Number one, you will write provision. The concerned provision means what is the topic to which this question relates. So number one heading paragraph will be corporate veil theory. A company has its own existence means the concept of separate legal entity. This is what is written under third feature of companies under Companies Act 2013, that a company is separate and shareholders are separate. There exists a veil. Veil means पर्दा. एक बीच में उनके दीवार है, पर्दा है. यहाँ पे कंपनी है, यहाँ पे शेयर होल्डर्स है, इनके बीच में एक वेल है, कर्टन है. This curtain is making them feel separate from each other. What is the meaning of this separation? Means whatever company is doing, we will not be liable for the acts of the company, which actually means the opposite of mutual agency relationship that you were having in partnership. That's why we tell you that for partnership, mutual agency is the true test, because companies never have the mutual agency. Companies are always having a separate legal existence. And this is what was proven by Salomon versus Salomon and Company Limited. So if you get such a question, number one, you will write down this topic relates to corporate veil theory. Separate legal entity concept is given under company's features, which means shareholders are different, company is different. There is a veil which exists between company and shareholders, which makes us clear that a shareholder will not be held liable for the actions of the company. Also, the property of the company belongs to company and property of the shareholders belongs to them only. We are not liable for each other. But can this veil of corporate personality be lifted? Now, it says many times, people try to take the disadvantage of this thing, that company is different, shareholders are different. But we've understood one thing, that company is always acting through human agency. Say, for example, if ABC are the members of a company and they are running a company, ABC Limited. But this ABC Limited has been specifically made to do frauds. ABC Limited is doing a lot of fraud. It is doing an improper conduct. It is not behaving in a legal manner. Then if court intervenes, can court say, ABC, you are liable for the improper conduct of your company? In that case, can ABC say that this is company who is doing wrong thing? Why are you holding us? So court will ask, has your company moved on its own? Do you have wheels under the company that it is moving and doing the actions? You are the people behind the wrong acts of the company. So sometimes it says that directors or shareholders try to take the misadvantage of this corporate veil theory, and in those respective 5 cases, the corporate veil needs to be lifted. All right. So what are those cases? It says if you are trading with an enemy country, if you are trying to evade the taxes, if you are trying to protect revenue, means government का अगर आप revenue चोरी कर रहे हो, government को tax नहीं pay करोगे, that means government का revenue कम हो रहा है. So if you're trying to do any such acts, illegal activities, if you're doing any illegal activity, something which is fraudulent, something which is improper, you're forming these subsidiaries just for a fake person, you're trying to evade the taxes, you're avoiding labor laws, then my dear friend, corporate veil has to be lifted, which means now company and shareholders will be treated as one. So these are the only 5 cases which has few leading case laws, which I'll explain you one by one. In those respective case laws and only in these 5 cases, the company and shareholders will be treated as one. But the corporate veil theory in itself says that company is different from its shareholders. So let us just simply read the theory. First of all, what does it say? What is the meaning of corporate veil theory? Corporate veil theory refers to a legal concept where the company is separately identified from the members of the company. So yes, ma'am, we have clearly understood. So this is how you have to write the answer to that previous question. So it says it refers to the concept that the members are shielded from the liability which is connected to the company's actions. Shielded means we are protected. Shielded means that shareholders are given a protection, that whatever the liability is being incurred by the company, Shareholders will never be liable. If the company incur any debts or contravenes any provisions, then members will not be liable for those errors. In other words, they enjoy corporate insulation. इंसुलेशन का मतलब क्या होता है? अलग कर देना, इंसुलेट कर देना. तो कहते हैं हम कॉर्पोरेट इंसुलेशन एंजॉय करें. मींस कॉर्पोरेट आइडेंटिटी हमें मिल गई. कंपनी इज डिफरेंट, शेयर होल्डर्स आर डिफरेंट. Now we are enjoying that insulation. We are isolated. We are away from company. So if company is incurring any debts, if company is incurring any losses, company will be liable for those errors, not the shareholders. That means shareholders are protected from the acts of the company. And this is what was proved in the leading case law of Salomon versus Salomon and Company Limited. This is the leading case law which laid the concept of corporate bail, that the person is distinct and separate from its members. So if you get a question to define separate legal entity or what is corporate bail theory, please learn this paragraph and write it as it is. So a 3 marks question can come, what is corporate bail theory? So generally a child really fails to understand kitna likhna hai, kya likhna hai. So this much paragraph is entirely based on 3 marks questions to define separate legal entity concept or what is corporate bail theory. So children, I hope you have understood what is corporate bail theory. It specifically talks about members are different from its shareholders. Now, how this point was proved, I will be taking up from the study material. That is the leading case law of Salomon versus Salomon Company Limited. But let's take a small break over here. After the break, first we'll do the separate legal entity Makora case law. Then we will do Salomon. And after that, I will teach you how the corporate bail can be lifted. All right. So let's take a small break and then we'll continue. Thank you. All right, welcome back, students. So in this 5 minutes break, I was just going through the queries that you have sent me. So let me first take up the queries. Dineshwari Abhijit, you're absolutely correct. Mutual agency principle, which was in partnership, is not there in the companies. But I'll explain you how the members might not be and directors might be having the relationship of agency. But that is different. But as of now, we are just understanding company is different from its members. And children, many of you are writing that, ma'am, is a separate legal entity and corporate veil theory same content they are having? Yes, that's absolutely correct. Corporate veil theory का meaning ही ये है that company is separate from its shareholders. So when we talk that ABC have formed ABC Limited, ABC Limited is a company, ABC are shareholders, and there exists a wall between both of them, which means a veil, which is known as a parda, a curtain, which separate the liabilities of company. Shareholders will not be liable. Yes, Vanishka Bajaj, you can say common seal is a kind of a stamp which is being used for an authorized signature. Yes, Soumya Bhattacharya, and somebody else was also asking if all the shareholders died, a company will come to an end. I have an interesting MCQ also for you all today in today's class. So I would want you to answer me that also. So that is absolutely correct. As of now, if all the shareholders die, still the company continues to exist because it has a continuous existence. Yes, Kartikeya, whosoever is the shareholder, it is different from its company. Somebody was asking, ma'am, sole proprietor and company are different. Obviously, they are different, but you have OPC. I told you sole proprietor means an individual business organization I have set up as an individual. So then we join hands, we form a partnership, and in order to have a major expansion and growth, we decided to set up a company so that we have the benefit of separate legal entity concept and we get the shield of limited liability benefit. So children, sole proprietor is definitely different from a company. But yes, you might be having a doubt that a single person can set up a company also. So the answer to that is yes, even we have the concept of OPC now, which means only one individual can also set up a company, which is known as OPC. Okay, Vansh Garg is asking if all the shareholders will die, who is running the company? So, child, whether you are running the company, whether company is doing the business or it is just lying dormant. See, when the company is just lying in the books and its name is only there, then what happens? It becomes a dormant company. But the question over here to understand is perpetual succession. The meaning over here that we have to know is if all the shareholders have died, does the company also comes to an end? The answer is no. The company's name needs to be striped off from the registrar of companies. We have to do the entire liquidation procedure to make the company come to an end. Miss Teja, yes, you can learn one of the definition. That is fine. Chavi, same answer goes for you. Shanya, you'll understand more when I talk about the case laws. Somebody again was asking about the fraud being done by a company. So we yet have to do that. So it will become more clear. Yes, Yashika Mahajan, they are one and the same thing. So now I'll take up your queries at the end, children, because we have lots and lots of to do. Mr. Smith, I have already answered you. Common seal is not compulsory, it's optional. Yes, Akansha, OPC is 1% company. Aditya, why do we have to do Insurance Regulation Act? That is not part of our syllabus. So we will not go into that. Okay. So quickly, let's open our study material and understand Salomon versus Salomon is left, children. Aren't you worried about Salomon's case? So now come out of the queries and let's understand what is Salomon versus Salomon and Company Limited. So just before the break, I told you the concept of corporate veil, which means independent corporate personality. Examiner can also ask you, why do you think that the company has an independent corporate personality? So there also you have to answer that it means it's a corporate veil theory concept. Salomon, वही same paragraph जो मैंने अभी आपको presentation में से दिखाया है, वही आपने लिखकर learn कर लेना है. अब many students ask me, ma'am, we have to learn this case law or not? You're not required to learn the case law word to word, but you have to understand this case law. Why, children? Because examiner is going to ask you a question based on this case law. He will give you the similar kind of facts, and in your answer, you have to write that this particular situation deals with corporate veil theory, and this conclusion, what you're going to give, was based on Salomon versus Salomon and Company Limited. So House of Lords means the court laid down that a company is separate and distinct from its member. Yes, ma'am, we have understood now. You just told us that company is different, shareholders are different. Ab ye kaise prove hua? Once upon a time, there was a person, Salomon. So once Salomon incorporated a company, once hona chahiye yahan pe, once Salomon incorporated a company named Salomon and Company Limited. So here I'm going to narrate you a very interesting story. So please pay attention. So Salomon and Company Limited, he made up a company. Incorporated means he made up a company with 7 subscribers. So you'll understand, in private company, you have 2 minimum people, and in public, you need minimum 7 people. So he thought of making up a company with 7 subscribers, means 7 members. Somebody in the queries was asking who is a promoter, who is a subscriber. As of now, just understand the members are the shareholders, and out of the shareholders, we select certain directors. When I teach you about the incorporation of company, there I will talk at length about the subscriber and promoter. For today, just understand members means shareholders. अभी जितनी information बस डाल रही हूँ दिमाग में उतनी रखो, उससे beyond मत जाओ, धीरे-धीरे सब points clear हो जाएंगे. So Salomon and Salomon Company Limited, Mr. Salomon ने create करी with 7 members. Who were the 7 members? Himself, his wife, 4 sons, and 1 daughter. So maths calculation कर लेना, 7 हो जाएंगे. He took over the personal assets of Salomon, what? 38,782 pounds. So now, ma'am, do we have to learn this information? This is just the purchase consideration figure that he's telling you. You remember when he's selling the business, you're calculating the purchase consideration. The payment that was made was 38,782 pounds. How this was divided? He took 20,000 shares of ₹1 each, debentures worth of 10,000, with a charge on company's assets. This is very important line. Please write down in your own words. This means he became a secured creditor to the company. He has secured debentures. When you say charge on the asset, means he has taken up secured debentures. Now children, when you have done accounts, you must have the basic information of secured creditors and unsecured creditors. Secured creditors means the creditors who are given certain amount of security like fixed assets. Unsecured means जिनको कोई भी assets नहीं दिए जाते हैं. They are not secured. So at the time of liquidation, priority is given to the secured creditors. We always try to pay back the money of secured creditors first, and then we pay off the unsecured creditors. Understood till here? So now he has taken 20,000 shares and debentures for the secured debentures because he has created a charge on company's assets. And the balance he has paid in cash. And just to fulfill the further obligation, his wife and daughter also took up 1 share each. So this is just a mere information that he has given. What was the major contention? Subsequently means baad mein, company went into liquidation. So because of certain, problems in the business, they could not do well. They were into losses. So they went into liquidation. Means the company is now getting wind up. Hindi में liquidation का मतलब company अब बंद हो रही है. So जब company बंद हो रही थी, unsecured creditors were to the tune of 7,000 pounds means we had to pay 7,000 pounds to the unsecured creditors. But my dear children, they have not mentioned about the information of assets. They had some assets around figure of 6,000 pounds. So when the company goes into liquidation, you have this only 6,000 pounds assets left. So whom will you pay first? So first you have to pay to the secured creditors, and then children, we pay to the unsecured creditors. And if still some balance is left, shareholders can divide it. But now out of it, 6,000 pounds, we have 7,000 unsecured creditors. And do you remember this 10,000? I told you these are secured debentures. So don't you think Salomon should be paid first? So they said only 6,000 pounds are left. So Salomon said, I am a secured creditor of my company. So I should get entire 6,000 pounds. And nothing was given to the unsecured creditors. Please write down this line. When the company went into liquidation, only few assets were left, and Salomon said that entire assets should be given to me as I am the secured creditor of the company, and hence unsecured creditors were not given anything. So unsecured creditors got very angry. They filed a case. They said, what is this? This Mr. Salomon, he himself is the owner of the company. He is the whole sole owner. His whole family is owning the company. So he should be treated as one. Why are you giving to the owner only? You should first pay to the outsiders. Then Mr. Lord McNaughton held his judgment. They said, please listen. Unsecured creditors, आप लॉ नहीं पढ़कर आए, लगता है आपने सीए फाउंडेशन की तैयारी नहीं करी है, तभी आपको पता नहीं है. आपको पता होना चाहिए कि कंपनी एट लॉ इज डिफरेंट from the subscribers to the memorandum, which means members. Simply Lord McNaughton said that company is different from its shareholders. A company has a separate existence. Shareholders have a separate existence. Even if the person is having the entire shareholding, then also he will be considered separate from the company. This is what the judgment was given. It says precisely, though in corporation the business is precisely the same, persons are also the same, and same hands are receiving the profits, but company is not the agent of the subscribers. आप सबने मुझे अभी बता ही दिया कि मैम म्यूचुअल एजेंसी नहीं है, तो मैं भी एग्री कर रही हूँ कि म्यूचुअल एजेंसी नहीं है. सो ना ही शेयर होल्डर्स लायबल है कंपनी के काम के लिए, ना ही कंपनी लायबल है. So in return, Salomon versus Salomon and Company Limited, Salomon won the case, and it was held that Salomon is different from the shareholders. Salomon is a shareholder who is different from the company. Therefore, being a secured creditor, his money should be paid off, and nothing was given to the unsecured creditors. Have you understood? So this point, this case law was specifically came into existence to make this point clear that a company has its own existence. This is the line which I was telling you. An examiner can ask you, what do you mean? So this is how we establish. So we conclude that company has its own existence. Shareholder will not be liable for the acts of the company, even if he is holding the entire share capital. चाहे आप सारी शेयर होल्डिंग क्यों ना 100% शेयर होल्डिंग आप होल्ड कर लो, आप अगर कंपनी हो. नाउ मिस्टर स्मिथ, योर डिफरेंस कम बिटवीन सोल प्रोप्राइटर एंड कंपनी. सोल प्रोप्राइटरशिप में आपका अपना बिजनेस है, 100% शेयर है, बट यू आर अ सोल प्रोप्राइटर. वंस यू आर रजिस्टर्ड एज अ कंपनी, वंस यू आर इनकॉर्पोरेटेड, इवन इफ यू आर हैविंग द एंटायर शेयर कैपिटल होल्डिंग, then also company is different, shareholders are different. This is the benefit that you get under the advantage that you have when you set up a company. So very interesting line. It says whole of corporation is based on this theory of separate legal entity. Entire Companies Act is based on this concept of separate legal entity. Now the problem occurs. It says, can we lift this corporate veil? Yes, this corporate veil can be lifted in certain cases. But before that, as promised, let me take you to Makara case also. Those who are asking about the company seal, please read out this amendment. It's very, very important amendment. It says Companies Amendment Act 2015 made it very clear that company seal is now optional. Optional means अगर आप use करना चाहे कर सकते, नहीं करना चाहे नहीं कर सकते, by omitting the words and common seal from section 9. So where section 9 is giving you all the features of companies, it says and common seal word has now been removed, and an alternative have been given that you can simply use your signatures instead of having a common seal. So common seal has been made optional. This amendment proves that the documents now which are need to be authenticated by the common seal can now be authenticated by whom? It says only if the company opts to have a common seal, then you can have. But if you don't have a common seal, this is important. Please mark it important. In case the company does not have a common seal, then the authorization means signatures shall be made by two directors or word है. Or means ye ya ye. Either by two directors or by a director and a company secretary. Wherever the company has appointed a company secretary. So if ABC Limited has a company secretary and does not have a common seal, then one director and company secretary should sign the papers. where company secretary is not appointed, then 2 directors must sign if you're not having a common seat. But this much information they have given over here, which you have to learn. Now, the case law of Macora versus Northern Assurance, many of you are asking about that also. Let's go through that. So it says a member does not even have insurable interest. It is written over here. I have already told you company is a separate legal existence. It has nothing to do with the liabilities. Shareholders have nothing to do with the liabilities of the company. Now, if you have to prove this point, a member does not even have the insurable interest in the property of the company. It says that company's property is in the name of company and shareholders' property is in the name of shareholders. So Macora was a person who was holding all the shares except one. Except one means 99% shareholding kya de hum? Yes, ma'am. All except one means maths aata hai aapko 100 में से 1 minus 99% shareholdings of a timber company. Timber is a kind of a wood, so it's just the name of a company. He was having a company, timber company, in which Macora was holding nearly 100%, so less than 99% shareholder. Also, he was a major creditor of the company. Now, this Macora, Mr. M, insured the company's timber in his own name. Now, what actually happened, there's some facts of the case. This Macora was having his own business of timber. He decided that being a sole proprietor, I'm having so much unlimited liability. Why don't I sell my business to a company? So he himself made up a company, timber company, and sold all the timber which was belonging to him. And now this timber was owned by the company. But when you have certain assets, like I was having a shoe business, so I have got the insurance of all those shoes because I am, taking care of the products in my shop. So don't you think when I was running a shoe business, entire stock of my company should be insured in the name of a company? Because I have a company and company is owning that showroom, all those products which are lying over there. But what Macora did, he made a mistake. He has insured the timber in his own name. So when we went to the insurance company and this timber was lost in fire, he said that insurance company, please pay me the compensation because all my timber of the company has lost. Insurance company said, I am not liable to you because shareholder has no right on the item of the properties which is owned by the company because you have no legal and equitable interest in them. Now, what is this? What is this problem? They said, Mr. Macora, you are having a company, timber company. Whose property is the timber? Company's property. In whose name you have the insurance? You have insured the timber in your name. So it says, why should we pay you the insurance? Had the name of the company being insured for the timber, we will only pay insurance to the timber company because now the timber is company's property. A member cannot have an insurable interest in the company's property. This property, this timber now belongs to company. It's a company's asset. None of the shareholder can have the insurance in his own name. So it was held that if it has it been in the name of the company, insurance company would have paid the money. But Macora versus Northern Assurance Company, this is simple case law where the examiner can simply ask you, prove this point. Can you have an insurable interest? If such a kind of question comes, again, your answer will be based on the third feature of companies, that is separate legal entity. So you will give the reference of Macora versus Northern Assurance. You will simply explain the facts and you will conclude that if a shareholder is having the insurance in own name, he cannot claim the insurance money because it is now the company's property. Insurance company cannot be held liable to the shareholder. Why? Because the shareholder cannot have any kind of insurable or legal interest in the property of the company's assets. It simply says a company is capable of having and disposing its own assets. Although the capital and assets are contributed by shareholders, which means although Macora only bought this timber, but company has become the owner. Aapne corporate existence company ka status liya. So shareholders are not the private and joint owners of the company's property. इस पैराग्राफ को important mark कर इस case law को learn करना. So its conclusion, this case law relates to this paragraph. Okay? So it says company is capable of enjoying its own property, but it doesn't mean that the shareholders have only invested, but company's property is different from the shareholders' property. Okay? So corporate bail is clear, separate legal entities absolutely now clear. So children, there are few cases, people at times try to take the disadvantage of corporate veil rules. It says before going into this question, one should understand the meaning of the phrase lifting the veil. There are certain cases where we need to lift the veil. What is the meaning of lifting the veil? I told you this is the company, these are the shareholders, this is the veil which is existing. Now, if I lift the curtain, don't they become one? Yes, in the 5 cases which are going to come, in those particular cases, the law will disregard the corporate entity, means he will say, no, there is no shield which exists between you and the members and the shareholders, and the company will be treated as one. So many a times, children, people, whenever any certain law is made, in order to cover the loopholes, we always try to give an exceptions. So now the 5 cases we are going to do, these are the exceptions which are given to the corporate veil theory. The law says, although you are separate, but sometimes people try to take the disadvantage of this feature that now I can do anything in the name of company. मैं company ABC Limited बना देती हूँ और उसके through fraud करती रहती हूँ. कल को law अगर कोर्ट आएगा मुझे बोलेगा कि हरदीन मैम आप गलत कर रहे हो, तो मैं बोलूंगी मैं नहीं गलत करी, मेरी कंपनी गलत कर रही है. तो आप ये नहीं बोलोगे कंपनी चला कौन रहा है भाई, फ्रॉड करने के लिए थोड़ी ना कॉर्पोरेट वेल यूज होएगा. तो अगर आप गलत काम कर रहे हो, फ्रॉड कर रहे हो, तो आप भी सीधा जेल में जाओगे. कॉर्पोरेट वेल पर्सनैलिटी खत्म हो जाएगी एंड शेयर होल्डर्स एंड कंपनी को एक माना जाएगा, सेम माना जाएगा. सो लेट अस अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट आर दोस केसेस. Number 1, to find out the character of a company. Now the leading case law is Daimler Company Limited versus Continental Tire and Rubber Company. Now in this particular, just give me a second please. Children, you must have studied this thing in Indian Contract Act also. That can we do any trading with alien enemy? First of all, answer me. Can I have any kind of contractual relationships with the alien enemy? Alien enemy means जिस country के साथ मेरी war conditions है, I'm not having cordial relationships. Can I have any kind of trading with that alien enemy? Yes or no? Agreements in restraint of trade में आपने Contract Act में पढ़ा हुआ. So Lakshna, I'm trying my best to talk in Hindi also. I have to use both the languages. Please children cooperate. I can't continue the entire content in Hindi. सारा कुछ हिंदी में नहीं बोल सकते हैं. हमें दोनों category of students का ध्यान रखना होता है. Okay? Abhishek Shukla, loopholes mean so that people are not trying to take the advantage of certain kind of situation. Say, for example, I just give you an example that if I try to do any improper conduct and I try to take the protection of corporate veil theory, the law says it doesn't mean that you can do such kind of frauds also in the name of corporate veil theory. In that case, corporate veil theory can be lifted. Yes, Rajeshri, that's absolutely correct. Okay, I only forgot what I've asked you. Okay, alien enemy. Very good. I was wondering why you have written no, ma'am. Excellent. No, it is void. Somebody is saying good. Miss Dia, Garendra, Rajeshri, Abhijit, Smith. Very good. No, we can't. Excellent, Swara. Very good. Very nice. So I just got taken away with your queries. Akansha, Teja, Preeti Kumar. Very good. Very nice, all of you. So we cannot enter into a contract with alien enemy. So आप सबको ये चीज पता है. Similarly, it says if you cannot do any trading actions with an alien company also. Now you all know who is an alien enemy. If some country is having a war kind of situations with us, then we cannot trade with them. So what happened was this Daimler Company Limited, this was a company which was formed in England. Although it was formed in England, but the entire management of this company was in the hand of German people. So there was a company in Germany which was actually managing and running this company in England. So law said this was during the situation of First World War. And this Continental Tire and Rubber Company was also an England-based company. This was also an English company. So law said now this Daimler Company Limited is having certain contractual relationships with Continental Tire and Rubber Company. So they said, we have to see the real character of the company, means who is the real owners behind this. So when they try to figure out that this entire Daimler company is being managed by the German shareholders, therefore this England company and German shareholders will be treated as one. This will not be treated as England company. It was actually treated as German company only. And now during First World War, England and Germany was having a war between them. So it was held the corporate veil will be lifted and you cannot trade with the alien enemy. Have you understood? Now, if you ask me, ma'am, हमने कितना याद रखना है? आपने simple इतना याद रखना है कि Daimler Company Limited was a company which was opened in England, which had the entire management and affairs in the hands of German citizens. So the German shareholders were running it. Since it was a situation of First World War, therefore Germany and England cannot have a contractual relationship. Why they cannot have? Because you have only answered me, ma'am. Alien enemies, the contract becomes void. Because then you'll be using the same money against the other country, right? I cannot have a contractual relationship with my enemy country. So here the German citizens, or actually they fight a case. Daimler company said, why are you treating us one? Because it is an England-based company. So company has a separate legal existence. Shareholders of Germany are different. But law said you have to determine the real character of a company. In such situations where the alien enemy is involved, we have to see who are the real shareholders behind the face. So they try to figure out that actually it is being run, the management is in the hand of German company. Therefore, Daimler Company Limited के case में German shareholders and England-based company will be treated as one, and hence they cannot enter into any contract with an England-based company, that is Continental Tire and Rubber Company. Clear है? Let's go ahead. So this is the first case now where it says to determine the character of a company, you cannot trade with the enemy. So Daimler Company Limited is the case which you have to remember. And this is the particular theory which is written in the study material. You can write in the answer if you get such kind of a question. Next is to protect revenue. I just now told you that if you're trying to evade tax means tax को बचाना. अगर आप कुछ भी हेर फेर कर रहे हो गवर्नमेंट के रेवेन्यू के साथ, उसके टैक्सेस को खराब कर रहे हो, तब भी आपकी कॉर्पोरेट वेल लिफ्ट कर दी जाएगी. Now there is a very interesting case now, Dinshaw Manekji Pettit. What he did, this Mr. Dinshaw, it's very interesting. Listen carefully. So this Mr. Dinshaw, he was having huge investment incomes. What is the meaning of investment income? When I invest money in the shares, I get dividend. And if I invest money in the FDs, I get interest. So this Mr. Dinshaw uncle, he was getting huge interest and dividend incomes. So when I get huge interest and dividend income, children, what do you think? I have to pay tax on it. Therefore, he had to pay huge taxes क्योंकि इसके पास तो बड़ी सारी income आ रही थी. But he tried to save the tax. उसने क्या करा कि मैं tax नहीं pay करूँगा and opened 4 different private companies and invested all his profits and interest income. What did he do? He got huge interest and dividend income, so he had to pay huge taxes on it. So he tried to open 4 different companies and divided all his interest and profits and dividend income into that. So when I opened the company, all my bank accounts were filled with a huge income. So I took out those incomes and invested in different companies. Now, entire share of profits were lying in these 4 companies. And this Mr. Dinshaw, Mr. D, he took in return loan from these 4 companies. देखा कितना चालाक था? इसने पहले सारा प्रॉफिट्स अपनी 4 कंपनीज में डाल दिया एंड फिर उन्हीं कंपनी से वापस लोन ले लिया. He was just circulating the money, manipulating the things. ये मैंने आपकी simple understanding के लिए लिखा है. He was just circulating the money means he was just doing a हेर-फेर, manipulate करना. तो क्या कर रहे थे Mr. Dinshaw Manekji Pettit? He said he was just trying to evade the taxes. Law की आंखों में धूल झोंकना बोलते हैं इसको. So जो पूछ रहे थे ना loopholes, इसको बोलते हैं loopholes. It doesn't mean Mr. Dinshaw that I have given you corporate personality and you keep on doing whatever you want. So later on, court went to him and he said, "Bhaiya, ye 4 companies you have made and you have invested entire income in them, and then you are taking a loan. These companies are mere sham, SHAM, mere cloak, mere sham. Means they're not doing any business. You're just circulating the money. आपने उसमें पैसा डाला और वापस उनसे लोन ले लिया. So that means आप पैसा सारा खुद खा रहे हैं सिर्फ गवर्नमेंट का रेवेन्यू टैक्स बचाने के लिए. आप टैक्स नहीं पे करना चाहते हैं. That's why you have created these 4 companies and you're just creating a fake entries in your books. You don't have any real intention. This loan was never repaid. So what was he doing? He was trying to act smart. He said, I am a shareholder. These are 4 companies. Company has a separate legal existence. Please go and ask 4 companies, why are you holding me liable? So law said we need to lift the veil. ये जो पर्दा आपने अपनी कंपनी एंड शेयर होल्डर्स के बीच में लगाया हुआ है, we need to lift this veil, and the corporate insulation was lifted, and they said Mr. Dinshaw and all these 4 companies should be treated as one. Why? Because he's simply trying to do a fraud. He's trying to cover those loopholes कि मेरे को benefit है separate legal entity का और मैं ऐसे कर देता हूँ. कल को जब lawyer आएंगे मेरे पास तो मैं बोल दूंगा please go and hold my company. But who is running these companies? Companies are not having any business. You are the man behind this who is trying to evade the taxes. So it says if in order to protect government revenue, means if you're doing anything wrong with the government's revenue, law will lift the corporate veil and you will be held liable. Now in November 2019, if you'll see the last question, examiner has straight away given you a question that there was Mr. A who has formed 4 private companies and he has divided all these incomes into those companies and then taken a loan. Do you think it is advisable to lift the corporate veil? Straight away question, the reference of Dinshaw Manekji Pettit. आपको नहीं केस तो याद रहता, आप मत लिखो, बट कहानी यही है. तो फैक्ट्स एग्जामिनर देगा आपको, जो मैं आपको भी बता रही हूँ ये क्वेश्चन में दिया होगा, आपको सिर्फ एक्सप्लेनेशन देनी है. Okay, so we'll take up this question from examination also. So I hope you have written this briefing story and now I'll erase this. Okay, so Dinshaw case is clear. Similarly, Guilford Motor Company. Let me just go over there first. So children protecting revenue, avoiding legal obligation. So another case law which is given in the study material, it says Workmen of Associated Rubber Industry Limited versus Associated Rubber Industry Limited. Now what happened in this particular case law? It was held whenever the company will have the profits, they will have to pay bonus to their workers. But in order to hide those profits, the company created a subsidiary company so that I can't show my profits. And if I will not have my profits, I will not have to pay the bonus to the laborers. So here, this particular company was trying to avoid the labor laws. He had some legal obligations. It had some labor contractual obligations, and he was not fulfilling this. The law said here also, we cannot say that the company and shareholders are different. The shareholders have to be held liable to avoid this legal obligation. Similarly, another case law, if you try to create subsidiaries to act them as in agents in this merchandise transport company also, then also the corporate veil was lifted. But what is important over here, 5th point is very, very important. Examiner can again straight away give you questions on the basis of illegal activities. So the reference for the 5th case law is Guilford Motor Company versus Honda. So another story for the fraud and misconduct. So what happened in this Guilford Motor Company case was that there was an employee, Mr. Honda. So Mr. Honda was employed with a company and he was having a very good relationships in his employment. So when he resigned, when he left his company, he signed a contract with that company that after leaving your company, okay, let me again write down because then it becomes easier for you. So Guilford, Mr. Honey, left his employment and formed a new company. And he signed a contract with his employer. He has signed a contract with his employer that he will not solicit. What is the meaning of solicit? That he will not attract the customers of employer company. What happened? There was one day he was employed with certain company, and when he left his employment and formed a new company, when he formed this new company, what was the name of new company? Guilford Motor Company. So when he formed this new company, he said that I will not be soliciting, means I will not be attracting the customers of my employer company. But what he did, after forming this Guilford Motor Company, he started, soliciting, after forming a new company, he started soliciting the customers. Soliciting means आप किसी कंपनी के साथ, जैसे आपको याद है ना, पार्टनरशिप में भी मैंने आपको समझाया था, section 35, 36, 37. I told you when you're leaving a partnership firm, certain restrictions can be imposed on you that you cannot have a competing business for a certain period of time. Similarly, Horney also signed a contract with his employer that I will not be competing with you. I will not be taking away your customers. But he intentionally formed a company just to solicit the customers of his previous employer. And he breached the condition of the contract. I told you he signed a contract and later on he breached the condition, means he started attracting the customers of the employer company. And this employer company, Guilford Motor Company, जहाँ पे वो काम करता था, they filed a case against Mr. Horney that why are you doing this? You are breaching our contractual relationships and you've already signed a contract and now we need to file a case against you. So this Mr. Horney was very smart. He said, please apply the principle of separate legal entity. I am not doing any illegal activities. I am not doing any fraud. It's my company who is doing the fraud. Why don't you go and hold him? The law said, hello, Mr. Horney, your company is not walking on its own through its wheels. It is you who is doing all these actions. Therefore, corporate veil was lifted and Horney and his company were treated as one. And that's why action was taken by Guilford Motor Company against Horney. So if anyone tries to do any illegal activities, any fraudulent activities, then the corporate, if you're forming a company just for the improper conduct, then the corporate veil is lifted. Now, children, what you have to learn this paragraph, remember Salomon versus Salomon and Company Limited, and these 5 exceptions of the corporate veil theory. How many case laws? Just these 3 case laws. कोई बात नहीं, learn हो जाएंगे. Don't worry, just these 3. When you learn them, you read them, you will memorize them. You want to have an MCQ? Yes or no? Okay. So फटाफट से मुझे बताओ, a company is a person different from its shareholders. Yes or no? Is a company different from its shareholders? Yes or no? ABC Limited was formed having 5 directors. All the directors met with an accident and died. Will ABC Limited come to an end? Number 1, the company comes to an end. Number 2, the company continues to exist as it has a perpetual succession. Very good, Naman, Goel, Chandan, Anand, Kartike, that's good. Yes, Kartike, that's absolutely right what you have written. Rahul, that was the exact story when you're asking how did Dinshaw, because Dinshaw created those 4 companies to avoid the taxes. Yashika Mahajan, there is a difference when somebody is running a business and the customers are coming on their own. And there is a difference when you try to cheat and take the customers of another company. So this is the point of difference. Okay, now please. Yes, Anand, that's true. Both the case laws are interesting. Monica, we have still not done listed, unlisted company. Please stay restricted to what we are doing right now. Keep answering the MCQs. ABC Private Limited was opened by Mr. A just to distribute the income that he earned by way of dividends and interest to evade the taxes. In your opinion, is it advisable to lift the corporate veil? Number 1, yes, the veil should be lifted. No, the company is different from its members. Corporate veil should not be lifted. So let me see how well you're answering. Very good, Priti Tiwari, Pritha, Subhay, Meghna, Vatala, Himanshu, Divya, Ditya, very good. ये हमने अभी नहीं करा है. Okay, so first 3 answers. Number 1, the company is different from its shareholders. That is absolutely true. And what is the point that proves it? Company is a separate legal entity. So 1 point extra for those who have written and impressed me with this word also. That's excellent. Company has a separate legal entity. And the second one was also very, very simple. The company will come to an end. No, the company will not come to an end because the company has a perpetual succession, means it still continues to exist. And 1 point for those who have written, company's name needs to be removed if it wants to come to an end. And the third one, okay, you want to know who is the winner in the third one? So this is exactly the case of Dinshaw Manekji Pettit, where the person is trying to distribute his income just to evade the taxes. And the winner for this question is, who has answered, yes, the corporate wage should be lifted. Tanushri, Azil, Meghna, Vatala, Priyanka, Kriti, Suraj, all of you, excellent answers, great. I'm proud of all of you. Good. So let's move forward. We still have 15 minutes and we need to wind up at least public and private companies and few classes of companies I told you we'll do. Also one examination question I want to do with you. Okay. So now children, coming back to this, on the basis of incorporation, you have three basic companies. One is registered companies, another is statutory companies and chartered companies. Chartered companies are like East India Company, which were existing very previously. They used to exist in the times of kings and queens. They are no longer into existence. Statutory based companies are again, like I told you, somebody was asking IRDA, Insurance Regulations Development Act. So the companies which are created by this specific statute, they are known as statutory companies. And registered companies are the companies about which we are talking over here. The companies which are registered and have get the certificate of incorporation from the registrar of companies. All right, so this is on the basis of incorporation. So there are two broad categories. One is incorporated companies and another one are unincorporated companies. So for example, you opened up a company ABC Limited and you did not go and got its registration done. You have not got the certificate of incorporation. Then it just keeps flying like an unincorporated company. But on incorporation, it can either be registered, statutory or chartered company. Now, on the basis of liability is very, very important. Company limited by shares, by guarantee and unlimited company. Since it has huge information and I really don't want to miss upon a single word. So let's move to our beautiful study material from where we can do each and अब कोई case law नहीं है कोई पूछ रहा है कि मैम अभी case laws हैं case laws हो गए हैं अब सिर्फ हम एक simple सा question करने जा रहे हैं types of companies उसमें हम company limited by shares guarantee and unlimited companies पढ़ेंगे okay so these are the 5 cases which we have discussed where corporate veil can be lifted. So this is the chart of companies children. So this is how the companies are described. Number 1, I told you incorporated companies which are incorporated with get the registration certificate. Unincorporated doesn't have a chart below it. Can you see? It doesn't have a chart below it because these are the companies which have just been opened, but they have not been incorporated. They have not obtained the registration certificate. On the basis of incorporation, again, we move ahead in the registered companies. These are the ones which we have to study. So on the basis of registration, we have on the basis of liability, company limited by shares, company limited by guarantee and unlimited companies. Now, company limited by shares are further divided on the basis of share capital only because their name is company limited by shares, so you cannot have without shares. So here the company limited by shares is further divided into public and private company. Let's see this. So this chart seems to be very, scary, but it's very, very simple. So on the basis of share capital, if you have a company limited by shares, you need to have a share capital. It can either be public company or it can be private company. Similarly, where the guarantee has been given, company's liability is limited by guarantee. It can be with share capital, without share capital. Again, it can be a public company or a private. Similarly, unlimited company can also be with share capital, further into public and private, or without share capital, and it can be public and private. So basically, registered companies have further 3 categories of company limited by liability by shares, unlimited and guarantee. And further, we have a broad category. It can either be a public company or it can be a private company. So let us understand first on the basis of liability. It says company limited by shares. So section 2, subsection 22. Those who ask me, ma'am, mandatory to learn the sections. If you can learn it. Otherwise, CA Foundation, still leave away the sections. Sections are not important. Content is more important. So section 2, subsection 22 says, when the liability of a member is limited by its memorandum of association. So what we have to remember over here is, number one word is MOA. So memorandum, I told you, it's a document of a company which defines, gives the broad features, name, clauses, and other things. And where is it written that the liability of the company is limited? It should be written in the memorandum of association. What has to be written? That the liability is limited to the amount, if any, unpaid on the shares held by them. If such a thing is written in the memorandum, then it becomes company limited by shares. Now, ma'am, what is the meaning of amount unpaid on the shares? So in the morning, I told you that the companies are generally having liability. For example, ABC are the shareholders and they have opened up a company, ABC Limited. Now, whatever shareholding you have made in the company, you're only liable up till that. So if Mr. A is having a 10,000 shareholding, he's only liable up till this 10,000 shares that he hold in the company. Now, let's assume that Mr. A is having 10,000 shares in a company at the rate rupees 10. So what is his share capital? 10,000 shares at rate rupees 10 means 1 lakh share capital that he has invested, right? But if he has paid only rupees 8, so then how much is the paid up capital? 80,000. Am I right? And unpaid amount is how much, children? Rupees 20,000. Now it says if Mr. A has taken up 10,000 shares, the price of the share is rupees 10. That means 1 lakh share capital he's investing. But if he has paid only 8, so 80,000 is the paid up capital. This is the unpaid amount on which we have to pay attention. It says now only rupee 2 per share was left unpaid. So Mr. A can only be called up in order to meet the company's debt for rupees 20,000 only. It says liability of this particular person is restricted to the amount which is unpaid on the shares. So this is the meaning of unpaid shares. If the share is for rupees 10, you have already paid rupees 8. So this 2 rupees, which is the balance which is left, you can only be called to meet the company's debts. You can only be called to contribute the amount which is left unpaid. Can you ask Mr. A to bring his assets and properties from his house also because I have to pay my company's liabilities? Yes or no? Tell me quickly. If the liabilities of the company are huge, will you ask Mr. A to bring his own property also, or is only liable till 20,000? I want the answer from you. Somebody has written, ma'am, definitely no, he will not bring. That's definitely correct. That's absolutely correct. So that means his separate property will not be liable. Only the amount which is left unpaid on the shares will be held liable in order to cover the company's debt. This is what is written over here. It says, for meeting the company's debts, you will only be liable to pay for the unpaid amount of the shareholding, and nothing is required to be bought from home in order to pay company's debts. Also, the shareholder is a co-owner of the company. He is not co-owner of the company's assets. You don't even have the ownership in the assets of the company because it's a legal person. Company has a legal personality. The company will own the assets in its own name. Okay. Similarly, the shareholder is having his rights in the company according to his shareholder. Clear ho gaya? Company limited by shares, unpaid amount of shares is the word that you have to remember. Now, company limited by guarantee, again, where it is defined, it says if the company is having the liability limited by guarantee, then again, memorandum of association should mention the amount that the members have to contribute in the events of winding up. So what were the two words in the company limited by shares? MOA, that it will be written in memorandum of associations. What will be written? That the amount unpaid of the shares. What will be written in company limited by guarantee? Number one, it is mentioned in MOA, that is Memorandum of Association. What will Memorandum of Association mentions? It mentions the amount which the members have undertaken to pay. Say for example, A, B, C are the shareholders. A says, I will pay only up till rupees 10,000. B says, I will pay only up till rupees 5,000. C says, I will pay only up till rupees 15,000. Now, A, B, C respectively will be liable for 10,000, 5,000, 15,000 only at the time of winding up of the company. Very important point. What is the meaning of winding up? Means जब company बंद हो रही है, खत्म हो रही है, only at that time you can ask these Mr. Shareholders to come with their liabilities, whatever guarantee that they have given, that I will be liable up till this amount, which is mentioned in the memorandum. They can be asked to pay their liabilities only at the event of winding up of the company and not before that. During the continuation of the company, these members cannot be asked to pay the liability. Okay, so liability of the members in case of a guarantee company. Simple, guarantee में मैंने guarantee amount बता दिया, shares में मैंने amount unpaid on the shares वाली मेरी liability. Here my liability is limited only to the amount which is mentioned in the memorandums. They cannot be called to pay beyond that. So where A is saying I will only pay 10,000, you cannot say Mr. A, please come and pay 15,000. He's only liable up till rupees 10,000 up till the guarantee which he has given. The common feature between guarantee company and company having share capital is that both of them have a legal personality and limited liability. दोनों ही separate corporate personality को enjoy करते हैं and दोनों की ही liability limited है. The only difference is that in the latter case means share capital वाली में company is limited for the amount unpaid on shares and both of them have to state this amount in the memorandum of association. Now ma'am, what is the difference between these four companies? This is the common feature. So what is the common feature? Both the companies have limited liability and the liability has to be mentioned in the MOS. What is the difference? The point of difference is in the former case means company limited by guarantee, they can only be asked to come in the case of winding up. However, in company limited by shares, they can be asked to pay the liability anytime during the company's lifetime. Simple major point of difference. So if ABC Limited is company limited by shares, you can ask Mr. A, B and C to come and pay the liability for the company's debt anytime. But what amount? Only the amount which is unpaid on the shares. If ABC Limited is a company which is limited by guarantee, you can only ask ABC to pay the amount only at the time of winding up and only till the amount that they have given the guarantee, not beyond that. Simple. Clear? And last is unlimited company. It says unlimited company, you know very well, means liability extends to whole of the assets of the companies and the liability has to be paid. Even if you don't have sufficient assets of the company, you might have to bring something from home, but you can in return claim the contribution from others' members. So the liability extends to whole of the amount of the company's debts. You have to pay off the liabilities in case of unlimited company. Company is not having any limit. So the liability of the member comes to an end when you ceases to be a member. So as in partnership also, once you retire, once you leave, liability comes to an end. Here also, when you cease to be a member, your liability will come to an end. So simple points. Let us quickly go through the unlimited companies also. There is no limit on the liability of members. Number one, अगर company की liability 1 lakh है, तो 1 lakh has to be paid. You cannot say that it is guaranteed up till this. Then it becomes a company limited by guarantee. So when it is an unlimited company, then you have to pay off all the liability. When does the liability ceases? Means liability comes to an end. Ceases का मतलब लिख लो. Liability comes to an end. So when does it comes to an end? When you cease to be a member means when you end as a member. When you have left the company, when you're no longer a member, your liability will also come to an end. Liability is not unlimited till the company is not moved up. So when are the members being called? The members are only called at the time of winding up. To contribute only at the time of winding up means जब company बंद हो रही है तभी आपको कहा जाएगा कि please आइए और company की liability pay off कीजिए. Not during the lifetime. Only at the time of winding up the members will be called to contribute. Liability of members extend to company's assets. However, he can claim the contributions for among the members. So whatever you have paid, if Mr. A has paid entire 1 lakh, he can claim the contribution from Mr. B and C as well. All right. So this is what we understand by 3 type of companies we have done. Company limited by shares, by guarantee, and unlimited companies. Now these companies are only further divided into public and private companies. Okay. If time permits, I think we should see one case law because I don't want that. Otherwise, it remains at my back of mind that हमने देखा नहीं वो case law. एक क्वेश्चन पेपर देख लेते हैं बच्चा, अभी हमारे पास टाइम है और फिर मैं क्वेरीज भी ले लूंगी आपकी. Just give me a moment. We just take it out, that question paper. I hope you have understood the corporate bail theory very nicely, and you have to revise all the case laws, children. If you think that you will do without revising, then it's not possible. Revision has to be done. I'll just open one interesting examination question that I want to show all of you. Okay. So this is, I think, November 2019 question paper. Let us see, the examiner has asked you a straightforward question. So I told you around 15 marks question generally comes, 4 marks, 6 marks, and 3 marks. So this is what I wanted to do because this is the syllabus which we have done so far. So please read this question with me. A, an assessee had large income in the form of dividend and interest. In order to reduce his tax liability, देखो, आगे ना मैंने आपको कहा था, straight away he will be using the words which are given in the facts of the case. He formed 4 private limited companies. उसने companies भी same बता दी आपको. And he transferred his interest in exchange of their shares. Income earned by the company was taken back as a pretended loan. Can A be regarded as a separate legal entity from private company that he has formed? Quickly give me answers. Now, this is 3 marks from the examination question. We have just done this part, and I wanted to explain you how you have to give an answer to the examiner. But before that, let me see how many of you have understood, and I will appreciate if you can write the name of the case laws. Very good, those who have been responding for 20,000 shares. Children, I'll take your queries also, don't worry. Yes, are you giving me an answer for this one? Excellent, excellent. Because it's very, you know, why you all have written the correct case law? Because it's very fresh in your mind. And have you noticed that examiner has given you the same situation, same points, same facts, that saving the tax liability, forming 4 private limited companies in exchange of share, and a pretended loan has been taken. So exactly correct, all of you, those who have written, ma'am, it relates to Dinshaw Manekji Pettit case law. Mr. Aditya, Mr. Abhishek, Abdesh, Ankit, Shriya, Shweta, all of you are absolutely correct. So let me teach you how you have to write the answer in an exam, because this is what many of you keep asking. So see, examiner has given you the suggested answers, tells you that in House of Lords, Salomon versus Salomon and Company Limited. So first he answers you that on the basis of Salomon and Salomon Company Limited, yes, the company is separate from its members. It has a separate legal existence. And in certain cases, but under certain cases, court needs to ignore this fact in order to find the corporate facade and hold the persons in control of the management. Corporate facade means any fraud is happening, then we have to find out who is having the entire management and controlling the affairs of such company. So where the company is incorporated and formed by a person for evading taxes, then corporate bail has to be lifted. Then he gives you the second reference. See, such beautifully, 2 case law reference. If person gives 3 marks, is 100% in your pocket. So Dinshaw Banerjee case, it says the company was not a genuine company, but the assessee was disguised that the legal entity has to be lifted up, and the private companies were a mere sham and corporate veil was lifted to decide the real event. Therefore, the facts of the case, this is how you have to write. When I say provisions of the case, you will first write this paragraph. You will give that this particular situation relates to this particular case law. In the second paragraph, you write what are the facts of the case, exactly the story written from the question. 4 private companies were formed, he was avoiding taxes, nothing was made possible, whole idea was simply to spoil the income, split the income into 4 parts, no other business was being done. And third paragraph is for the conclusion, hence A cannot be regarded as separate from private limited company, therefore corporate veil should be lifted. Clear hai? So this is how you have to write the answers also. So I'm glad you have done one question paper question. Okay, now let me take your queries and then we wind up the session. Those who still feel like sending the queries can write it down. Raghavan, if you're asking if he forms 1% company, so when we do 1% company, then I'll tell you what will happen. We have not explained you 1% company. Thank you, Apni. Mr. Ray, yes, Nisagar, that's right. Now, children, you can send your queries. I still have Insure Management only written over here. So I have to find the queries. You can write down your queries because they have got mixed up in the MCQs. Aditya, that's correct. So, Ms. Teja, Salomon case simply tells you that a company is separate from its shareholders. If you ask me specifically what happened in that case now, then actually Salomon was a secured creditor of his company. And he said that whatever money at the time of liquidation has to be paid should be given first to the secured creditors and then to the unsecured creditors. So unsecured creditors went running to the court and they said, see, this shareholder, he himself is the owner of the company and he is taking the money his home also. So law said that his shareholder is different, company is different. Therefore, he is not doing any fraud. He is just following the rules of liquidation. He is a secured creditor. Therefore, money has to be paid to him. Abhijit Kumar, you can leave the sections. That's fine. Yes, Prabhas, we'll try to discuss RTPs as much as possible. Thank you, Sanjay. Avdesh, I'm proud. Everything is clear. No more queries. That's good. Abhishek Shukla has written, man, तीनों case laws yaad ho gaye. Proud of you. Raghavan, private company yet to do. Be patient. Company limited by shares. Yes, Mamta Yadav, you have not understood company limited by shares. It means a company in which liability of the members is only limited up till the amount which is unpaid on the shares. So, Mamta, if you have taken 10,000 shares of a company and out of rupees 10 per share, if you have just paid rupees 8, then rupees 2 is the balance which is yet to be paid. So, at the time of liability to be paid for the company's debts, you can only be invited to pay rupees 20,000. So, जो 20 rupees आपने जो नहीं 2 rupees जो आपने नहीं pay करे हैं, 2 into 10,000, 20,000 is your liability, and this liability should be mentioned in the Memorandum of Association. Mr. Smith, I'm glad. Thank you so much. Monica, raising of corporate veil means that now company and shareholders will be treated as one. They cannot be disregarded. They cannot be regarded as a separate legal entity. Means we are trying to hold the shareholders liable for company's actions. So when we say separate legal entity, that means shareholders are not liable for company's action. But when we lift the corporate veil, then we are trying to hold the shareholders liable. So Sneha, I told you there are different type of companies, limited by shares, limited by guarantee, and unlimited company. Generally, the common features of companies, they say that the company has a limited liability, but there are, I told you that time also, there are certain companies which have unlimited companies, and this is something which is written in their articles of association. So one more point you should remember, company limited by shares and guarantee, here their liability is limited, is mentioned in the memorandum of association, and in case of unlimited companies, their liability, which is unlimited, is mentioned in their articles of association. Anushka Gupta, for that we have to understand how the certificate of incorporation has to be obtained, so which will be taken up in the next session. Priyanka Gupta, the corporate will, you're asking whether it's good for company or not. See, that is the protection which is being given to the shareholders, right? If company has huge liabilities, shareholders are not liable for company's actions. But it says if you try to take misadvantage of this thing, misuse, you try to do some fraud, you do illegal activities, then you cannot take the benefit of this thing, then shareholders will be held liable. Prasant Rai, that MCQ is specifically related to the examination question that we have just done right now. Secured and unsecured creditors, children, secured creditors where certain security is given along with that, unsecured which are without any security. Simple. Shweta Patel, you can write down your queries. Sanket, you are not clear with Guilford Motor Company. Thank you, Aditya. So in that particular case, though, you simply have to remember, if you are employed with one company and you're leaving that company and forming a new company, then you should not be breaching the contract that you have signed with your previous employer. So Mr. Horney had already signed a contract with previous employer that I will not be getting in touch with your customers and I will not be calling them, I will not be asking them to come to my company. But he was actually doing all these illegal activities. Then law said you and your company is one and you will be liable for these actions. So Ditya Soni, which point is not clear, Bacha? You can write that. Yes, Pooja Singh, that's fine. You have to write that much, yes, even if it was 3 months. Vinayak, please write your question clearly. You're saying I've written all the answer, but it's very difficult, from 5,000-6,000 queries to find what answer you're talking. Thank you, Kriti. Can a company, yes, a company can be public and a private company. Both companies limited by shares and guarantee can be a public and a private company. So those who are asking about the company limited by shares and by guarantee, the only point of reference is in case of a company limited by guarantee, only your liability occurs at the time of winding up. However, company limited by shares, your liability can occur anytime during the company's continuation or at the time of winding. That is the only point of difference. No, companies don't have mutual agency, Ms. Roshni. Yes, you can write the facts in your own names also. I think all the relevant queries are now covered. Thank you so much. Your homework for today is revise. We have done 5 cases now. Somebody's writing, I've done 3. We have done 5. Makora and Sullivan also you have to remember. Dinshaw, Daimler and Guilford Motor. So all these 5 cases should be in your tips. And next session, we will be winding up with the kinds of companies and we'll be starting with the incorporation of companies. All right. Thank you so much, students. Save this. Goodbye.